Until then.
So, unless you've been under a rock recently, you probably heard about HBO's new show starring Zendaya, Euphoria. The show follows a group of teens going through high school, but they rip off the censor lens that some networks that do shows similar to it have to abide by, one of the many advantages of being on a network like HBO, and making Euphoria unlike anything I've ever seen in its genre or time. Its first season was slated for an 8-episode run, which was completed last night as of my time of writing the script, and may I say, bravo. I could do a breakdown of the show and its characters in a full separate video. Leave a like if you'd like something like that. But that's not what we're here for today. Today, we're going to break down the musical number in the season finale. So, if you want to avoid major spoilers, stop here and go watch the show. HBO put the first episode up here on YouTube. The link is in the description below if you want to see it. Come back when you finish. I should warn you, it's not for kids. So, if you're under 18, don't watch. Hey y'all, I'm Kennedy from Dynamic Reactions, and welcome to the breakdown where we stand Zendaya with a passion. And as I was scrolling through Twitter last night after the episode, laughing hysterically at the relatable tweets about my feelings toward the episode, I couldn't help to notice a lot of people were confused about the musical number. And I realized that not everyone is a visual audio nerd like me, nor do they have people in their lives that struggle with addiction and anxiety like Rue. So I figured I'd give my theory on everything and break down the shots and lyrics I felt stuck out the most to me that hint at what happened after the screen went black. So let's get started. To understand what's happening to Rue in the musical scene, we first have to give context by revisiting the scene before. Rue's walking home after being left by Jules. Yes, I said what I said.
I said what I said!
Who's on her way out of town. The events leading up to this were super emotionally charged. Rue and Jules had just acknowledged their romantic feelings for each other, something that they've been building to since the beginning of the show. To summarize, Rue is the one who, after this moment, suggests that they get out of town. Rather impulsively, they pack and start heading towards the train, and this is where Rue begins to think through the action she's about to take. She mentions to Jules how she forgot her medication, how her mom and her sister will be worried, and Jules responds nonchalantly with, "We'll figure it out, and we'll call your family later," showing not only how she's still a teenager with a lack of maturity, but it also shows her inexperience when it comes to dealing with someone with mental illness or an anxiety disorder. I saw people saying that she should have known better, that Rue wouldn't go because of her mental illness, but for me that's only half of the equation. Let's get real for a second. Rue has been through so much with her family. The death of her father leading her into her addiction, with her little sister finding her OD'd on the floor, to rehab and the pressure of being a role model for her sister. And because of those things throughout the season, despite what we see her go through, I believe we also see her gain a bit of maturity that her friends don't have just yet. We even see her step up as a sister for Jesus, so it's only natural after thinking about the decision she just made, she decided not to go after all. Where I believe her anxiety comes into play is as Rue is holding Jules' hand here. Zendaya's face, to me, really told the story of Rue coming to the realization that Jules is leaving without her, a person she's been using as her medicine, her reason to stay clean. And that's where her anxiety lies, not knowing what to do without her anchor. Eventually, walking home, she falls into the trigger spiral, thinking about her family issues, her dad, and that leads us into her relapse and the musical number. We start the scene with Rue being lifted off the bed like every possession horror movie I've ever seen, onto her feet. Euphoria does a great job of visually illustrating the mind on drugs, and this is no exception. White specks fall like snow from the ceiling as she rises, representing the line of drugs she took moments before. She gets up on her feet and begins to sing as she stumbles her way through the house. Sometimes during relapse, people think about their families, the people they love, and this is no exception. The song states that Rue is doing it all for love, but that's also a double-edged sword, meaning she stayed clean for love, Jules' love, but she left her for family love. But since that anchor is gone, she has to go back to what keeps her happy, what keeps her sane, what in her mind makes things peaceful for her family: drugs. She remarks that there's too much in her system, so we can assume that this means she's in the midst of an overdose once again. Rue then proceeds to be held up by a choir in the same color as her dad's hoodie, which she's been wearing this entire scene. And this might be just me, but some of them look like they're wearing makeup in the same style as Jules, symbolizing one of the reasons she stayed alive and clean. Also, as they were bouncing her up and down, it looks as though through her movement, they're resembling the violent convulsing that can happen during an overdose. We then see the choir bouncing her back and forth, in my opinion, between consciousness, between life and death. We then get to the bridge of the song where she says, "Guess you figured out my 2 times 2 always equates to 1. Dreamers are selfish when it all comes down to it." My theory is that she's talking about the fact that as a caretaker of someone with mental illness, and illness in general, sacrifices have to be made. Addiction can sometimes be viewed as selfish if you aren't educated, or like Rue in the middle of a spiral and blaming yourself. She goes on climbing the choir, singing, "I hope you come back to remind me of who I was when I go disappearing into that good night," hoping that Jules will come back to be her anchor in these hard times. As the song composition climaxes, she reaches the top of the mountain of people and falls after looking at the sky. Assuming the overdose has done its work and she's passed out, the screen goes black. After the song finishes, if you listen carefully, you can hear birds. In the episode, Rue tells us how she likes to imagine that the hospital machines sound like birds, so with that in mind, it's safe to assume that she's in the hospital yet again, where we can assume season 2 starts off, if not shortly after that. So, what do I think? All in all, I think the Rules relationship is a great reminder that people are not medicine, and the implications that can have on a person's relationship. We saw how it affected Jules and Rue from both sides, and neither person had a great outcome. When it comes to any illness treatment, and sticking with it is a choice you alone can make, and people can only help you to their extent, which varies. Relationships are meant to be balanced, and when they aren't, it can be toxic for everyone involved. Tell me your thoughts about the scene, Rules, season 2, season 1. Leave a heart in the comments if you want to punch Nate Jacobs in the face, and as always, if you're new here, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys for reactions to season 2, and peace out.